getting ready for Comic-Con talk, because obviously I am not home right now. But, so, I watched VHS Halloween the other day. I forgot my notebook. I wrote all the notes down, and I don't have them on me. I have them remembered. So, obviously I'll go into spoilers. um, to before I go into spoilers and kind of like run down what like every segment and stuff was, I have to say this one was like, I feel like a lot of the segments kind of fell flat. And then I think because this one is set as like Halloween, so people kind of made it kind of silly, kind of hokey, kind of my goddamn allergies are of course gonna act up as I hit record. Um, like I don't want to be like it needs to be serious filmmaking or something, but I don't know. It just because everything else was kind of played kind of like fun, and then there was one segment that was kind of like oh, so it kind of like the vibe of it was very I rated I rated it the same as I did the one from last year, but I feel like of a lot of the VHS like anthologies, this is probably one of the weaker ones. Um, and I feel like since it's been like a special like Shutter thing, that a lot of it has been kind of tamed because back in the day when it was like VHS and it was on like and it was just like it would just premiere on like Netflix or something. That shit was insane. That shit was like OD. That shit was like I don't think this is like film. This is snuff. Like that's what it felt like. I mean, I feel like the whole idea of the VHS um anthologies was very much like like found footage and da da da, which that's the whole point of it. But at the same time, again, a lot of it felt very snuff and very like ooh uncomfortable. Whereas like later on, it was just like, hi, I'm doing this movie. I don't know. It just yeah. I'm going spoilers. 1, 2, 3 spoilers. So the kind of wraparound segment is called Diet Phantasma, I think, something like that, and it's pretty much like a test subject thing with like soda and whatever not, and it's a each time it would come in between like the segments. It would be a different test subject. It would be a guy. It'd be a woman. It's a guy and a woman. It's a child. It's a whole group of people. They would try it, and there'd be like, okay, it's just soda, right? But they're in like orange jumpsuits, like what? And they'll try, and all of a sudden it's like, like acid shoots out, or like the can will come alive, and like tentacles would like grab at them, or people would explode, or whatever not. And after each interlude in between each segment, it's like, oh, okay, and then like someone comes in like hoses the room down and all that stuff. And even during like the mid-credit sequence, there was one where it was like the commercial for it, where it was like, they finally figured out like the amount of ghosts, exorcism, whatever shit they dripped into the soda, and was able to be like, this it's like made from real ghosts, and it's like the little girl being like, I love this drink, eyes are white, she's like, oh, I love her, that kind of stuff. It was funny, and because it was so kind of silly, it kind of was like I kind of enjoyed that one. It kind of was a little bit, in a sense, comforting because it would be like in between the segments. So you knew when you get back to like the wraparound segment, you're like, okay, it's silly. You're just go watch someone else drink it and kind of like kind of go a little insane. Whereas like previously in other VHS ones, and it's like some dude in a house. Like there was like that one where the guy was like, like the wraparound segment was just some guy who's like, I'm in this house and I found these tapes, and he puts a tape in, and that's like the next segment, and then at the end of it he like blows his brains out, and you're like, what the fuck? I don't know. I'm insane, so I like really fucked up things like that. Fake fucked up things, not real fucked up things, because that's just I enjoyed like the acting, the fiction of it, because people tend to nowadays we're so about like absolutism on the internet and no such thing as nuance. So when people hear that, they're always like, "Oh, you like fucked up things," and you're like, "Okay, it just like Jesus Christ." Anyway, so the first segment is the first one after the wraparound. I think it's called Coochie Coochie Coo, and it's these two girls, and they're obviously like in their 20s, or far too old to be trick or treating, and so they're just dressed as like babies, and they're like, we're gonna go trick or treating, and they ring some guy's bell, and they're like, aren't you guys all too old? And the one girl has like the crying baby mask. She's like, give me candy, da da da. And then the guy like is like gives candy, and then she snatches more from the bowl, like obnoxious. I mean, fine. We were all at that age being really horrifically obnoxious. Although a lot of people nowadays put it up on TikTok and thinking they're fucking gonna be praised for it because like they're young and pretty, and then you're looking at it like, oh my god, thank god when I was that age I wasn't just putting shit online like that. Oh my god. Even when I did, it was just dumb shit like this, being like, I like this movie was okay, I wasn't out there being like committing a crime. Anyway, so they go to all these houses, they get all this stuff, they get to one house that they're like, hey, did that house just like show up out of nowhere? Of course. They're like, ring, okay, no one's gonna fucking, answer the door. But then like the door opens and then it's just like, it's black and it's just like a hand sticks out with a basket of candy, and they're like, let's go. No. Again, a lot of scenarios in horror films and stuff, it's just like the, bitch, I would never do that, but you go ahead and do that type of thing, So they go in the house, and it felt like Resident Evil 7 because they're like in this kind of fucked up rundown house. It's like the first person perspective because I was like found footage, and it's very much like you see the Ethan hand, type of thing, and you're just expecting that. There's several times like with the shots of it, it felt like Resident Evil 7. It definitely gave me that vibe of it. So that one, like the Coochie Coochie Coo one, like kind of like creeped me out the most because it just made me think of Resident Evil 7. So in that one, it's supposed to be like a lore, like there's this lore of a woman called the Mommy, and she's supposed to like, she catches you, takes you, or whatever stuff. So these two girls are dressed as like babies. They go in the house, they notice it's like milky footprints, and it's like really weird and uncomfortable, and they see like things like it's a girl, or there's like a breast pump thing, but there's like 6, and you're like, wait, 6? What the fuck? And then you see like this grown man, but like, his, oh my god, his fucking like pupils are dilated as hell. But then even though he's like a fat man, but he still had like round baby cheeks, like JD Vance freaking meme, please, type of like round cheeks, and he's like got a bib on, he's like, yeah, and you're like, what the fuck? The horror film 101, like big fat naked man, that's always scary. And they're like, what the hell? And the girls are freaking out. Then they like run. They're like, wait, where's the, wait, this is the door. This is our stuff. And then they're like, where's the door? Or they like found a door and it's all boarded up. They're like, how? Ah. Then they're like, rewind the tape. And they're like, there's that photo, but the photo's there, but the door isn't there. The usual thing of like the house changes and stuff. So then there's one part where they open the door and then the mommy's there, and it's just another scary movie thing, which is naked woman, but like obviously she's got 6 tits, and you're like, 6 titties, and she's also like very elongated, and she's like walking to you all like, ugh. Like pretty much like, what was it, like the old naked woman, and they're like, oh, that's scary, but she's just like, oh, walking towards them, and they're like, god, oh, that was weird, I thought someone's coming in. So they find a girl in like a cheerleader outfit because she was like the girl who went missing last Halloween, that type of shit. And then she's all like also puffy cheeked, and you're like, what happened to you? And she's like, like screaming. They're like, no, shut up, like, oh, fuck. So one of the girls gets like captured by the mommy, like she like hugs her, breaks her ribs and all that shit, and like drags her, like in or whatever. And then the other girl, is still trying to figure things out. And then there's one part where this felt like Resident Evil 7, and the girl's like, she has a camera, and just before like one of them got their ribs hurt, but like she like leans out, sees the mommy coming up the freaking like the stairs. I would be like, I literally was like, nope. Comes back in the room, does something, goes back out, she's still coming up the stairs. And I'm like, bitch, close the door. Close the fucking door, what are you doing? No, I'm gonna still, but that felt like Resident Evil, like that part in Resident Evil 7, where you like go down the hallway, and then that bitch just comes out of nowhere out the door, and she goes, and she kind of comes out like she just kind of goes, hey, da-da-da, and you're like, ah, bitch, I've seen so many people play that, especially with VR, and they're like, ah! No. no, I can't do the first person perspective horror thing. Like in games, I'm just like, because I'll throw the control, I'll start screaming because I have fight or flight, and my thing is it's fight all the time. So it's just like, no, you know what I mean? Anyway, so yeah, obviously the mommy comes and captures them all and stuff, and in the end, the mommy, she sings a lullaby, and the girls are just like snuggling against her, and like, oh, there's one part where I was like, this is someone's fetish besides the whole baby thing. It was like one girl, like, she's like tied up in a chair. There's like a thing of probably milk, and she's like in like a mask, and she's like forced, like forced into her, and she's like choking and all that stuff. And again, pupils dilated. And I'm watching and being like, all right, this is someone's weird fetish of like force feeding, gagging, whatever, milk, baby stuff. I'm like, especially with horror, you're like, ooh, I am learning a lot about this person, Yeah, so they die. And I think the next segment is a Spanish language one called Supra Sic Infra. It's been a while since I've taken Latin. I have fucking Latin tattooed on me. It's done by, what the fuck did the guy do? I recently watched the movie La Abuela, the grandmother, and then what the fuck else did this dude? Oh, he did the Wreck movies and Veronica. So I really like a lot of his movies, but like this one kind of fell short because it just like, there wasn't anything like, oh, you know what I mean? So it's like a party happened, and like a bunch of young people went to some like abandoned house or some shit like that, and all their eyes were plucked out, and they all died except for one guy. So of course the police are like interrogating him, and then the main actress from La Abuela is actually in the interrogation room. I was like, hey, it's you. I just saw you like, 45 minutes ago or whenever I watched the movie, And so, whatchamacallit? So yeah, like, the police are, interrogating the guy, being like, what did you do? And like, like, what happened? And then he was like, oh, it was just a freak accident. So they take him back to the scene of the crime, and they're like, okay, what happened? So they go in, it says, it translates to as above, so below, but it's upside down. So they look and they're like reading it, and the guy says it like 3 times, and then a phone that's in the middle of that room, not plugged in, starts ringing. And it's one of those old like rotary ones, so when it rings, it's like loud, like, like a old school bell kind of thing. And you're like, damn. Like, what the hell is that? The dude answers the phone, and he's like, starts convulsing. Everyone starts freaking out. Eyeballs start, popping out, all that shit. Then the cops are like, okay, what happened? So then he tells the woman what happens. One of the investigators or something. She does it. She says the words. Her phone rings. They're all like, what the fuck? She goes to answer it. She's like, there's nothing. And then thinking that she would be the one convulsing. No, the guy starts convulsing again. Blah, 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 blah. But then as he's convulsing, the eyeballs came out of his mouth. And I was like, okay, that's where they are. It came out of his mouth. And then everyone in the room like dies. Like everyone's like, and then ends, and then everyone just like falls dead. And it's like, it's a nice, fun, short segment, but I also feel like there wasn't much to it. Like, I guess because it was a little bit simple, you know what I mean? I feel like there could have been something more to it than just like haunted telephone, now I'm the main guy, that was a truck, main guy, to kind of myrtleize everyone. I don't know. That one kind of fell a little short for me. I paused for a second. Now I'm like, was I out of focus this whole time? Awesome. Anyway, so after the Spanish language one, the next one's called Fun Size. And that one was definitely like, I think it's made by people who normally do comedy. Because, it is, horror comedy does exist. Because it was very silly. And like, one of the actors, he has like the top reviewed comment on Letterboxd. So it's like, again, another set of people who are too old to be, trick-or-treating. They go and trick-or-treat, and, like 2 of them are engaged, all that stuff. And they go up to a house, and there's like a table with a big-ass bowl, and it says, please take 1. And it's the same thing as like with the other girls, where they're like, what if we take the whole bowl? That kind of stuff. And these people are older. Like, they have to be like 29, 30 or something. and they're looking at the candy, and they're all like weird, type of candy. They're like there's sprinkles and flurbarts and you know, and I love how it's like very like duh, it's bootleg candy, but also like I love how whoever the props department was didn't like do a good job sealing them. So when they went to go open them, it was like, like they had to act like, oh, I'm opening the candy and wonder like, oh, this is dick shaped or whatever. And the actor who ate the dick shaped candy, he has the top rated letterbox review, which is I'll never quit acting. I'm going down in history as a guy who ate like a dick shaped candy, and it's like it's very good for him. So that one, they're like, what if I took two, da da da, and then like a hand comes out of the bowl and like grabs one of the guys. He's like, and they're like, how are they doing that? Because like the table is literally just like a table. You can see they're like, man, that's a cool trick. Where's that arm? And the one dude gets pulled under, and his friend is trying to pull him, and he gets pulled in as well. And then the girls are like, what the fuck, And then literally the bowl comes at the camera, and like grabs the other two girls. Now and it's funny because like when previously they were in like a different house and they were like trying to trick or treat, and I think it was the same guy from the other segment who was like, aren't you guys too old to be trick or treating? Sometimes in the VHS things, they have some of them where they kind of relate a little, whether it's like the directors know each other or whatever, but they have like segments where they're like, wait a second, it's like, it would be like something in like the background running like a running theme of like, of like a news thing about like there's a woman named Jennifer who's missing or something like that, But anyway, so yeah, I'm like, I think that was the same guy. Or I have like old white people racism or something. But so yeah, so then they get sucked into some basement of a building they rented out, and so they're running and all that stuff. They're like, what do we do, and then there's like a dude in like a costume like fun size. I thought that was pretty silly. I really enjoyed that fun size character thing. It kind of reminds me of, I think it's the pumpkin head thing from Fortnite like years ago, because I was almost commissioned to do that costume before it ended up being the main cat mask one that I end up doing. But yeah, so I mean, that was done really well. Then I had like a little person like, fun size, whatever. I thought that was done a lot better than the sealing job of the candy or whatever the candy packaging was. That's just me being like such like a props person and whatever not. So that's just me nitpicking. It's fine. But yeah, like the fun sizing. So they go in and they're like, "What's this? This is weird." And then like one dude, the one dude gets like stripped into his underwear, and he's like he's fed into like a conveyor belt. They're like, grab the key. They're like, what do we do? And then they freaking put him through a machine. He gets chopped into pieces. I love how the first thing you see is dick and balls, and you're like, okay. And then it explains like, oh, I think that's what that candy was, and he really did eat dick, because then it's like it's chopped, it's a finger, it's like one ended up being like the hand holding the key kind of thing, and like they pour nougat and nuts and caramel and chocolate all over, and they're like chop. I love how then at one point they did separate the dick from the balls, and I was like, oh, okay. So you get turned into candy, and it's like, what, that kind of stuff. Fun size. Again, it was a very silly segment. And then what was it like? Then the one girl, she gets like a tube up her butt, and there was like gumballs going in there, blah, 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 like going up her, and she's like, and then her head exploded, like Another moment of me being like, that's someone's fetish, being like, you want these gumballs to go up your ass? All right. I swear, especially in horror, you find yourself being like, I'm learning a lot about this person, So yeah, like, that was pretty much like the fun size one with just like these people. Oh yeah, I think they got out, right? I think they got out. Yeah. I mean, by the time this one played, I was just like, fine. I mean, they did kind of start off strong. Like, the soda thing was great. Like, in between, the different... Yeah, again, you're just, like... I feel like that was, like I said, one of the best, like, wraparound ones, where, because you were, like, when the segment ended and it went to the wraparound, you were, like, excited to be like, ooh, who's the next, like, person gonna be exploded or acid on them or whatever. It's like I said, the later like Saw or Final Destination movies were like, I just want to see how these people die. So it was good. It kind of kept you on your toes to be like, ooh, ooh. Whereas previous ones, like a lot of times you get to the wraparound thing and you're like, okay, let's just move on. I just want to see the next segment. I don't want to see this, you know. Like I said, the fun size one was fine. The next one is the one that a lot of people called a tough sit, it's hard to watch, yada yada. And I'm gonna be honest, maybe it's because I follow the news a lot, and maybe because it's been 2 years of all this shit that's been happening overseas, that like seeing what happened in this segment was just kind of like didn't really phase me. So like, the next segment is called Kidprint, and it's this like video store owner, electronic store owner guy, records like these teen, tween, like that age and younger, so kids, pretty much like their name and what they like and da 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 and all that stuff. So then like the parents can have a copy, and then the owner also has a copy as like a backup. So in case these kids go missing, they have like evidence of like the child and like how they sound and da 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 and all that stuff. And I think like, I don't know if it was Blockbuster, but I think like back in the day, to age myself, back in the day there was some type of like um service like that like parents did actually do that, where they had their kids like stand in front of a thing. It's like, my name is Josh, I really love baseball, I love Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's like cool. And then if they go like, Josh is missing, it's like, this is him, he loves Sonic the Hedgehog and da da da. And then they're like, oh, poor Josh was found with his body, the side of the road all bloody, and you're like, oh god, anyway. So like, it's not far from like the truth. And also the fact that I did like that this was like, old in a sense, because it was like legit, felt more VHS-y and all that. VHS-y, it felt more like, oh, this is a specific type of time period kind of thing. And also like, so yeah, in the segment, it's a lot of kids have gone missing, so a lot of the parents really wanted to get like the recording of their kids, from the Kidprint thing. And one mom was like, hey, I really need a copy. And the guy's like, it's going to take a little bit, because this was back in the day, you don't just like pop the memory card in, copy, paste, here you go type of thing. Here's the link, downloaded off the drive type of shit, So a lot of the parents were like, hey, I told my kids, like, if they would do this segment thing, then they could go and trick-or-treat with their friends. And like I said, a lot of kids have gone missing, so a lot of parents are kind of like apprehensive, but they want their kids to have fun. To the point where like that town has like, it's like you go to the park and the police are handing out candy, and like the little kids, they don't know, so they're just like trick or treat. But like the kids who are like more on the teenage end, who want to like go out and have fun, they're kind of like, this is kind of dumb, it's kind of like booty ass shit, and then like the owner of the store, he's fine, he's like bringing his youngest to the thing, and then he's told like, oh hey, so something about the store, so he had to go back to his store, and he has someone who works there that's not like a family member, and he's like, what the hell, man? Like, why do you keep all the lights on? Come on, man. Like, don't do this to me. He goes back to the room, and there's like 4 monitors, and it's like, oh, the normal like Kidprint background to be like, this is Josh, just, that kind of stuff. But then like the lighting is red, and the kids are like, let me go home, let me go. And then this went from like, oh, this is where the part where like, this is definitely uncomfortable, and I understand if like, if you have kids, this is definitely not something you want to see, because it, to a degree, it felt a little real, because it's also very much like I said, recorded in the way where it probably was shot on actual video, on actual VHS, or if they digitally did it, they did a really good job, because it felt like you could feel, the analog in it. But you see these kids, like, it was the guy who works for the video store guy had captured all these kids, because he has all this footage of these kids, so he captures them, tortures them, and records it all, because, that's the best thing, is recording your crimes. And the guy is like, yeah, tell me. And it's like, it's a girl, it's like a teenage girl, a teenage boy, it's a little boy, it's a little girl. And they're all like, well, the teenagers are like, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. And they're being like tortured and face ripped off and like bloody. And the little kids are like, please stop. And I understand the little kid part probably, it hurts more. I'm so dead inside that, again, 2 years of seeing, you know, like, the shit I've been seeing on the news, it just really, it's so fucked up to say, but like, this was obviously fake. I know, it's a movie. But I was just like, wow, okay. After seeing like real children being blown to bits and all that stuff, seeing this, I was like, because not to be like, I used to be on Rotten.com kind of stuff, but it's like seeing that every day, like, you know, literally, like, you scroll on your phone, like, that's a dead child, that's a dead child, that's a dead child, you know, you just see that. So then when you see like the fake version of it, you're like, that's fake blood, you know, like, it just, you have a full disconnect of it because you're just like, wow, okay, that's not real, it's a movie. But again, I totally understand if someone, like, why a lot of people found that like this segment a tough sit, because it's like, oh, this is really fucked up. And it's also like, it's a predator thing and as well, and like, all that stuff. So, you know, the video guy, you know, goes and like finds that there's like the couple of teens that like are still alive and they're tortured, but you can't blame the teens for thinking that the owner of the place is part of it, because if the employee is doing it, they're like, well, of course this guy's probably enabling him, right? So like, this one girl is like, he's part of it, and just like stabs him to death, and you're watching like, no, he actually didn't know. Fuck. You know, you're watching like, wait, no, wait, damn it. You know? And so, you know, he's just like on the ground, like dead. And then the girl like pulls the guy who had his face ripped off, like just, you know, taking him to safety. And then, you know, in the news they're like, oh man, who knew? It was his owner the whole time. It was such an asshole. And they're like, hey, you weren't his employee, how was it? And he's just like, you just don't know people, and you're like, yeah, you know, like, you're having that kind of moment watching it, and yeah, it was just like, okay, I guess, you know, and like I said, a lot of people said this was the most disturbing thing in VHS, and again, I can totally see that, but again, my mind goes back to like the old segments where like someone's blowing their brains out, you know what I mean, and it looks very real and all that stuff. I understand children being harmed is definitely an upsetting thing. This VHS anthology could be summed up as fuck them kids, because it's like the Coochie Coo one, it's like you turning these adults into babies to fucking, I mean, the Spanish language one just was just like, okay, it was Halloween because they had a Halloween party, that kind of stuff. It wasn't really fuck them kids. I mean, they're fuck the young people, I guess. Fun size was like, okay, turn everything kitty and fun size. Like, oh, okay, kind of creepy. Like, even at the end of that, like, this kid was like, hey, I took two, and then the bull, like, attacked the mom. Like, rawr, you know? This one, again, like, the harm to children is not okay. I am not saying it's okay. It is not cool. But, again, my brain is so fucked up from looking at the news all the time that I was just like, I mean, you know, like, again, I just sat there just being kind of like, okay, because it's just like the stuff I'm inundated with on a daily basis. But so yeah, so then like the last segment is called, I think, House Haunt, and it's like a dad who like does you know, like a haunted house thing every year in like their neighborhood. And their son is like, you know, he's like a teenager. He's like, I don't want to do this with you anymore, Dad. Like, he's like, oh, but you really liked it. He's like, yeah, I was a baby then, which I get it. You know, when you get to the age of like a teenager and you're like, oh, I'm too cool for that. And then like you hit like 27, you're like, oh, you know, I miss not paying taxes. I miss like having fun and just being like a child. Can we go do that? You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, so like the mom convinced the son to go with the dad to go like shop for more stuff for the haunted house. And then I found it funny because they're shopping in the store, and then the dad like sneaks to the back and then takes like this random record. You know, oh yeah, I put some money on the counter, and I'm like, wait, you want to do this thing, but you didn't actually. That's because you saw on the back. You're like, this must be good. I don't know. It's you did it to yourself, and then they do the haunt, they play the music off the record. Who fucking knew that the music off the record was gonna cause, like, spirits and stuff to happen? So, like, you know, whatever fake shit he had that were, like, zombies and witches, they actually came out, they're like, all that stuff. And everyone was like, oh my god, what the fuck is this, Jim? Well, I don't remember his name, but yeah. It was like, oh my god, and they're all freaking out and stuff, and everyone's like dying and being like torn to shreds and all that stuff. They're like, what the fuck, man? What the fuck is happening? You know? And I don't remember what else happened. I don't have my notes, you know, and I forgot what else happens, but pretty much it's like, oh, you know, and it kind of just ended like that. It was, oh my god, Rick Baker does like a fucking cameo in it, you know, because like all of a sudden the camera turns on him, he's like, yeah, what is this bullshit? And I was like, the legend Rick Baker, you know, I was like, holy shit, Rick Baker. So yeah, like, fucking Rick Baker. But yeah, of course, his character dies. Characters get like wrapped in like a sheet and just like like somewhere, you know. And that one was kind of silly as well. And again, it's fine to be silly. Not, I mean, again, I feel like if everything was like intense, like the Coochie Coo one, or like the freaking the Kidprint one, I think like no one would have a good time watching any of this. Again, the old VHS ones, every segment was like that. Like, every segment was just like, fuck, like, someone's dying. Or, like, they kind of made it kind of Twilight Zone-y, the old segments, where, like, everything was just like, oh my god, it's, like, dreadful, and, like, it's horrible, and there's, like, assault happening, and then all of a sudden it's like, turns out we were on a planet this whole time. It's, like, so weird. I kind of want them to kind of bring back a little bit of the old vibe, you know? Could you imagine if I did a VHS segment? I don't know. I don't think I'm a good director, but someone needs to hire me and pay me properly to do the makeup, you know? I'll do that. I'll definitely do that. But yeah, so like I said, so for this one, like I said, the wraparound one I really enjoyed because it was very silly and it kind of like, it was like, you know, they played it serious enough when they're like, drink it, you know, like, we're serious science people, to being like, like that kind of stuff, where like, it was a good balance. The Coochie Coo one, like I said, I only enjoyed it because it reminded me of Resident Evil 7, you know, so I was like, alright, I kind of like that, where it was like creepy, rundown, you know, house, and things were kind of gross. It did give me a little bit of motion sickness, so it wasn't like the best thing, but kind of did its part. The Spanish speaking one was probably like the kind of the one that I almost actually forgot. Actually had to look up what the segments were because I was like, wait, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Fun Size one, you know, it was kind of silly and dumb. It was the horror comedy one. Kidprint one was like, hey, yo, Jesus. And then it ends with like House Haunt, which is kind of like, all right, you know, probably shouldn't have done that kind of thing. But anyway, camera's dying. Anyway, that was it. VHS Halloween. See you next year for whatever the next one is.